Hi, welcome back and happy April. Let's rewind to talk about the books I read in March. So in March, I wanted to continue on a couple series that I've previously started. So I reread two first books of two different series. Sorry if that was confusing. I wanted to start off with talking about Carissa Broadbent's The Nightborn Duet series. Sorry, that was one of my baby's toys. Anyway, I have the indie out of print copies of book 1 and book 2 of this series. I've purchased these and read the first book originally years ago. I've moved houses since I originally read this book. So it's been a while, and that's why I wanted to reread it before moving on to book 2. Well, book 1.5 and then book 2, but we'll talk about that in a second. So the first one is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This 1.5, so the novella in between is 6 Scorched Roses, I believe, and then the second book is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So I read all 3 of those books in March, and I'll talk about each of them separately. So originally, I bought these first 2 books when it was still indie published, because everyone was comparing Carissa's writing to Sarah J. Maas's writing. And they're like, if you read Sarah J. Maas's stuff and loved it, then you're gonna love Carissa's stuff. I do own multiple series of Carissa's works. And I do really like them, but I actually prefer the Daughter of No World series. Originally, I rated Serpent and the Wings of Night 3 stars years ago. I reread it, I still rated it 3 stars. This is because I didn't get the same feeling I get with some of my favorite romantasy books. I wanted to be more enthralled and wanted to know more about the world and the characters and the reason why characters did things that I got out of these books, unfortunately. So this is about Araya. I think she goes by Araya. She is a human that was adopted by the Nightborn King, who is a vampire. So she is the human who lives in this vampire realm. So life is pretty hard for her. And she ends up entering this, they call it the Kajari. She enters the Kajari because ultimately she wants to become a vampire like her adopted father is. And the Kajari is like this cool competition. It's a trials romantasy. But she's the only human and the rest are vampires while she enters this competition. And it's fun. It moves quite quickly. I do really like the romance in this book, and I like the ending. I just wasn't obsessed with it. I think a lot of people are, for good reason. I just unfortunately wasn't one of those people. So I do recommend picking this series up. And then the novella, 6 Scorched Roses, I ended up rating that book 4 stars. It's very short. I listened to it from Libby. It was so good. It's based in like the worlds you learned about in this series, but it doesn't have to do with those characters. I don't think you have to read it to go to book 2, but it gives you a lot of depth about certain characters before you move on to book 2. So personally, I take that back. I think you need to read it, but I don't think the author says you have to read it. I rated it 4 stars. I loved the love story in this book. I got the world building lore that I wanted in this book in this little novella. So I highly recommend this novella. Definitely worth your time to read it. Again, it's super short. I think it took like a day to listen to it. So then when I was finished, I was able to move on to The Ashes and Star-Cursed King. This was going to be my deciding factor if I was going to continue on this series. I think this might be a 5-book series. I'll have to look it up. I rated this a 3 stars as well. And this book I was excited about from the ending of the first book, where this one was going to go. I could just not get invested in what was happening in this book. So there is big things in the plot that happens during this. I just didn't feel connected to it because I feel like it moved too quickly in the big parts. So to lead up to these big moments, I love a great lead up. I love a middle filler book where we're leading up before we go to the next book or it could be at the end of like a chunky book. But I just needed more before these big moments, because I unfortunately felt disconnected, and I didn't really care about these big moments that I knew they were supposed to be like these big events. So unfortunately it was a 3. I am technically not going to continue this series. However, I do want to read the next novella, which is like 2.5. I think it's Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Again, I don't think it's like I have to read in the series, but I heard that novella is also just as good as the 1.5 novella. So I'm technically not going to continue this series, but I am going to read the next novella because it sounds great and short, and I like the world. I'm not really feeling Araya and Rain, who is the love interest in the first book and this one as well. I'm not into it, and I honestly can't even tell you how it ended because I just didn't really care, unfortunately, where it was going. But a lot of people love this series, so if you like vampires and more of like a true romantasy where we are focused on the romantasy just as much as we're focused on the politics, then this would be a really good series to pick up. One more thing I want to add on book 2, the reason why I didn't love it is I felt like the problems that occurred in book 2, things would magically happen to fix it, and that is a pet peeve of mine. I love when something comes back in a book. Like if you're learning about something in book 1 and in book 4 something's coming back to fix the problem, that I love. This one, like, things were invented to fix the problems, and I just don't love that in books. All right, let's talk about Crescent City. Oh, I love ACOTAR. I love Throne of Glass. Throne of Glass is probably my favorite series of all time. I just never picked up Crescent City for some reason. I don't know why. It was just the urban fantasy of it all just never interested me. But I knew I had to read it. So last January, when my twins were born, I finally picked up Crescent City House of Earth and Blood because I knew that the Sarah J. Maas universe was going to connect, and I had to read Crescent City to read the rest of ACOTAR books that would eventually come out, which fast forward, now we know 6 and 7 and 8 will come out soon. I'm so excited. However, I finally decided to pick it up. My mom, she's read all of Sarah J. Maas's books as well, and this is her favorite series, surprisingly. She loves an urban fantasy. I do also love an urban fantasy now. I should have picked this up sooner. It took too long for me to pick it up. The first time I read this book, I rated it 4 stars. This time I rated it 5 stars. I'm so happy I reread it. I was able to slow down this time and actually learn more about the world, the politics, the characters, and just sit down and enjoy them. So Crescent City starts off about Bryce Quinlan, who is half fae, half human, in the world Midgard, and Crescent City is in Midgard. So Bryce is a party girl. She parties with her friends. She has a great time. She's a blast. She loves going to nightclubs and dancing, which we love that for her. And then one day a brutal murder happens, and it kind of changes her life. Years later, it jumps to 2 years later, and the murders pick up again. And this time, the fallen angel Hunt is assigned to protect and watch over her as well as solve the murders. So this fantasy, I would say it's an urban fantasy, but it's also a mystery. It's a murder mystery. And Bryce and Hunt go around the city meeting all these people, trying to figure out how these murders are happening. And that's all I'm going to say, and there's so much more. The world building is incredible in this. The characters, you hate them and you love them, and then you hate them again, but then you understand that you actually love them. Again, 5 stars. Loved rereading this. pick up this series. You need to read Crescent City if you have read the other Sarah J. Maas books. Don't be like me and wait forever. This series is so good. Don't be intimidated because every book is 800 pages or more. It's just so good. You're gonna finish it and be like, I wish it was longer. I need to know more about what happened. Pick this series up. You need to read this to read the future ACOTAR books that are coming out, okay? This is such a good series. Bryce is now one of my favorite Sarah J. Maas characters. Love her, love this book. Then I picked up Crescent City House of Sky and Breath, which is book 2 of the Crescent City series. I can't really tell you much about this book. Everyone always says they really like book 1 and then the other 2 were like, okay. No, this was incredible. I rated this 5 stars. I can't tell you what happens in this book, but I was flabbergasted. There's no better word. It is so good. You love the characters that you thought you loved in this one. You love them even more in this one. The world unravels to lengths that you didn't even know could go. And everything starts making sense. Well, it doesn't make sense, but it also makes sense at the same time. You need to read these books. 5 stars. Love Bryce even more. She is a badass FMC. We love to see it. We love to be her. She is just incredible. I love her. I love the way Sarah made Bryce's mind. I love the way Bryce thinks and her decision making, because I feel like her decision making is what a lot of people wish they would do or say, and they just don't have the guts to. And unfortunate things have led to Bryce kind of acting this way a lot of the times. However, I just love it because you're just sitting there and you're like, Bryce would do that. Bryce would say that. Even though she's a fictional character, I'm like, yeah, that was so Bryce. Like, she's my bestie. So pick this series up. I am for the first time reading House of Flame and Shadow right now. I'm currently on 276. My plan is to finish this by the end of the week. So this will be my April wrap up. It's a good one. I'm just sitting here having a great time. Even though great times aren't happening, I will say that great times are not happening in this book. I am just having a great time being with these characters, sitting here, reading where their story is going. I'm scared for so many people, and my heart breaks for so many people, but hopefully good things are on the way, and I'm excited to talk about this next month. All right, so March was a big old reread and series month, and unfortunately that's probably going to continue because I am planning on rereading ACOTAR before October. But there is plenty of new books that I haven't ever read and that maybe a lot of you haven't read that I also am going to read. I'm not going to sit there and just read all of ACOTAR in April. I'm going to do like one a month. So all the rest of the books are going to be new books. But I am so excited to see what I read in April. I have some ideas that I want to read, but let's see if that actually plays out the way I think it will. But thanks for hanging out. Read Crescent City.